Hey everybody, it's time for me to tell you about Nowhere Land, the Chris Chan project. Mitzi's going to hang out and keep us company while we talk about it. So, uh, many of you who follow my channel regularly will know that I work or have been working on a Chris Chan related project for the better part of this year. Um, and I've been very vague about what it is, and that has been largely because I did not want to generate um, any specific speculation on what to expect, and kind of leave the field open to my own goals and my own experimentation. So, what is Nowhere Land? Well, regular viewers to my channel will recall a video I did in December of last year called Sonichu the Musical, Chris Chan and the Cult of Cringe. That video was inspired by a afternoon drive home that I had one day where I suddenly had the idea to write Sonichu the Musical. And so I used that as the basis for it, which I quickly realized was an absurd idea, but I used that as the basis for a video about people who have been taking Sonichu, the comic character, and the stories, the comics themselves, entirely too seriously. And when I made that video as an attempt to be funny, I wrote about 30 seconds worth of music for a hypothetical Sonichu musical. And of course, there were people who thought that the music was an absolute banger. And they asked me to write a proper, complete Sonichu musical. Well, Sonichu would not work as a musical for a number of reasons. First of all, the plot is complete nonsense. Second of all, it has no actual characters. They are all just avatars for the creator, who is himself a character within the story. And thirdly, it requires the reader to be intimately familiar with literally hundreds of unrelated cartoon franchises, among a whole lot of other things that would make it completely unadaptable to a musical environment. The Sonichu comics are essentially a multi-volume word salad with very little literary or artistic merit to be found whatsoever. But one thing I started thinking about was the life story of Chris Chan himself and the dramatic and tragic arc of this mentally unwell man whose mental health issues are exacerbated by overwhelming public attention, who ultimately prevails sexually, develops his own comic book series as a means of escaping reality, and ultimately prevails sexually on his elderly mother. And there is this very almost beautiful, almost poetic, tragic narrative to that. And I started thinking about the great concept albums, The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon, Tommy, Quadrophenia, Ziggy Stardust, A Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Misplaced Childhood, on and on and on, Days of Future Past, on and on the list goes. And I started thinking about these great concept albums. And I had the idea for a song about Chris Chan called The Childish One. And I demoed it out and started listening to it and started thinking about these great concept albums. I started thinking about musicals like Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita that started out as concept albums. And I had this idea that I got really excited about, which was to write a 20-song, 2-act Chris Chan progressive rock concept album rock opera. and that is Nowhere Land. So to all of the people who are wondering why it won't be distributed on YouTube, that's because it's going to be distributed through music outlets, online music outlets. So that is Nowhere Land. It has been submitted for distribution, and I plan for it to be available before Chris's next court hearing. I can't say for sure when they will put it out, because it depends on what their current backlog of material to upload to the various distribution websites is. But that is the current state of affairs. It will be coming out very soon, or will be made available very soon through all of the major streaming sites and that sort of thing. So this is, I want to say this album is not done, unlike pretty much everything else that's been done about Chris, that's done to be very derogatory and for comedic effect and that sort of thing. This is serious. This was done to be a serious commentary on the reality of Chris Chan. And it's amazing it's amazing how much more impactful a few lines of lyrics set to melody can be compared to hours and hours of talking into a webcam. And so this is my way of getting everything out there about Chris Chan, about my feelings about him as a person, positive and negative. Or I shouldn't say positive and negative, because there's very little positive, but sympathetic and unsympathetic, put it that way. And my comments and my thoughts and my observations on the people who raised him, the world that raised him, the social atmosphere around him, everything, the effect that the harassment had on him, that sort of thing, and of course a resounding condemnation of everything that he did to his mother. And so in making this album, there are some ethical considerations that have to be made. People have written in on my videos, my Chris Chan videos, saying that they appreciate that I'm one of the few people who has talked about Chris Chan with any amount of compassion. And I certainly don't mean to contradict that with the material found in Nowhere Land. There is compassion, there is a tremendous amount of compassion expressed for Chris, but it is also an exploration of my honest and visceral feelings towards Chris, which includes elements of contempt as well. On top of that, you can't tell the story of Chris Chan without dramatizing the trolling that he received. So I have to, there are elements on the album where I'm singing in character as the trolls, just like there's a track on the album where I'm singing in character as Megan Schroeder, among other people. And so because of that reality of the album, I do have the strong ethical consideration that I don't want to exacerbate the situation with Chris Chan. I don't want to make things worse for him by releasing this album. At the risk of sounding pretentious, I think what I encountered in doing this album was something similar to what Truman Capote encountered when he wrote In Cold Blood, where he is painting a genuinely terrifying portrait of these two men who are condemned murderers, but at the same time, he did forge a human connection with these two horrible people, and that human connection weighed on him when he wrote In Cold Blood. And I think that a similar effect came about when even though I've not interacted with Chris directly and don't ever intend to, a similar effect came about when I was making this album. And so it's not lost on me, that reality, in making this album. It's really not. All of that said, it is a head trip It is surrealistic. It is, intentionally meant to evoke memories of the trippy concept albums from the golden era of 70s progressive rock. And for that reason, I'm not releasing any promotional singles beforehand. I want it to be listened to as a whole and complete work. It runs in its entirety, I believe, about 65 minutes and some change. And I want you to listen to this thing taking the time to sit down and focus on nothing else. Give it your time. Turn out all the lights, sit in the dark, put on your best, most pristine stereo speakers, listen to it, and give it that hour or so of your life to really listen to it and really take in everything that happens, everything that's said. I spent a lot of time over the last few months just creating fiendishly multi-layered musical stuff in this. There's a wide variety of musical styles that you hear on this. There is a lot of intricate layering of parts. I did everything from, obviously contemporary styles of music, but then incorporating classical music as well. There's orchestral elements, that sort of thing. And again, I know that sounds surreal for a project about Chris Chan, but I wanted to use music and use my music to go at this story from an angle that nobody else had explored yet. And so I want you to listen to it that way. And like I said, it's a head trip, man. So, smoke out, drop some acid, if either of those things are your inclination or whatever. But it is at the same time a surrealistic psychedelic joyride through music and mental health and a very dark, disturbing story that we have all followed for close to 20 years now. So that's Nowhere Land. And I've been really pleased with the number of people who have been writing in, telling me how excited they are for this project. I'm excited for you to hear it as well. And so I'm looking forward to it. When it comes out, I will post links and announcement and everything, make sure everybody knows, but that's what you have to look forward to. Peace.